Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso at the1916company.com for purchase, pricing, and availability questions. Launched in 2019, the Patek Philippe 5520P has long been the most misunderstood Patek Philippe watch. Designed to echo the Calatrava Pilot, though not technically a pilot's watch, it's also built like a minute repeater, even though it is not a repetition minute. The watch is a dual time with perhaps the most elaborate alarm system ever built into a wristwatch, and at 42.2 millimeters in platinum with a fully loomed dial. It is a difficult watch to classify. So this watch, of course, went out of production in platinum with the black dial as of 2024 when the rose gold model was introduced. So we have this 2019 to 2024 oddball that's difficult to explain, but at the same time might be the most versatile Patek Philippe ever made. And I'm going to show you how it operates. It's big, at 42.2 millimeters in platinum and profile 11.7 millimeters. From lug tip to lug tip, it's 50.5 millimeters. It's got a 21 millimeter spacing between the lugs, and because this is a platinum modern day Patek Philippe, it has a diamond, a top Vesselton diamond between the lugs. We'll throw it on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, and I really believe that this is a watch that's substantial and probably shouldn't be worn on a wrist any smaller than mine. This is fine, this wears well, but I'm gonna advise 17 centimeter circumference wrists and up because it is very broad across the wrist. It's not super thick, though perhaps the crowns could catch on a sleeve. I will estimate that most shirts and all jackets will flow over it. But again, 16 centimeters circumference and up. It's heavy, and it's a kind of gratifying mass as you want your expensive watch to feel its price, and this definitely does. Taking a look at the strap, you can see it does echo the design of the Calatrava Pilot, as we have calf skin with a cross-hatched stitching, very similar to what you'd find on something like a 5524, and then a gray contrast, a very subtle contrast between leather and stitch, a sheer-cut side with lacquer for refinement, and then calf skin on the bottom. You can see no crimping, no gouging, Patek factory strap with pull-tab spring bars so you can pop the strap off with your fingernail, and the Clevis-style counterweighted buckle that is used on the Calatrava Pilots, and it too is in platinum. The case is simple. I would say that the case is probably the least intriguing part of the design because it is a fairly standard piece. We have integrated lugs which are curved at their end. Everything's of high polish. We have a conical bezel with a little bit of an inward step to visually thin the watch, and then some fascinating details on the crowns. This is for jumping backwards with the local time, and this is for jumping forwards. This travel time system in its modern form debuted in 1997, and it gives you the ability to change the local time whenever you want as you jump time zones, and in fact it can be set even when the alarm is chiming without damaging the alarm, because both the reference time and the local time are 12-hour time zones. They move at the same speed. So if you want to cover the 2-hour hands, you could superimpose them and clean up the dial when you don't need the busyness of that second time zone. But to give you the functionality of a true 24-hour GMT, you could see that both the local and the home time have these little windows to let you know whether you're looking, for example, at 5 a.m. or 5 p.m. And there's a AM PM for the alarm system as well we'll talk about. Turning it all over, you can see the crown features the Calatrava cross, the logo of the brand, on the crown that's used for setting the alarm, setting the time, winding the alarm, and winding the time. Now, in the first position, when you turn clockwise, you wind the alarm. There is a slipper, so you cannot overwind it, but you want to be ultra careful when you feel the resistance. I don't even recommend you turn past the resistance. Now, when you turn backwards, that winds the movement that powers the time display. But I do think that when you feel that resistance, even though they do discuss a slipper system built in, I don't recommend turning it past the tension. Now, when you move it to its intermediate position, it can be used to set this 24-hour format alarm, which updates in 15-minute increments. And then in the outermost position, you set the time, and that activates hacking seconds. You're probably wondering, too, what does it sound like? And And if you're wondering, how long will that go? The answer is from full wind, this 2.5 hertz system will go for about 40 seconds. And it is loud enough to wake you up, which I think is the bare minimum for an alarm watch. If it can't act as an alarm clock and wake you up during your travels, there is no point. And this being a dual time, it is that much more important. Now let's take a look at some of the setting modes and just talk a bit about how the alarm works. So the alarm is based on a 24-hour cycle, and it has an on-off function. But because we are dealing now with something very similar to a minute repeater, just as you need to pull a minute repeater slide all the way in order to safely operate the repeater, you need to wind the strike barrel all the way before you're able to use the on-off function. And there is a little lock. You can turn this crown to lock it so you can't accidentally turn it on and off. And then there is a on-off function that allows you to activate the alarm and deactivate the alarm. And this is an important thing because the alarm system will not work at all if it is not fully wound. So people just sit here on, trying to arm the system, and they don't realize that you have to push this crown all the way in and wind it until it reaches the point of resistance. And only at that point can you consider it to be properly wound and ready to fire. And then you can arm it, and then you can use the alarm. Now, in the intermediate setting position, you can see I'm able to move the alarm in both directions and that it's set in 15-minute increments here. And that's important. Let me just demonstrate how this works. You can turn it in either direction. But what will eventually happen is this little window down here, just as this little bell is the on-off, this little window tells you whether you're looking at AM or PM hours. So for example, you can see as I continue to make adjustments, now we're looking at a white disc. Now this is 12:15, this is 15 minutes after noon. And then we continue in the opposite direction. You can see that little disc turns black. Now it's 10:15 in the evening. So that's how that works. Of course, it is a dual time, and being a dual time, you have the ability to drive the local time zone forward or backwards. What you see down at the bottom is a pointer style date, and as you make your time zone jumps, you can see how you can jump the date forward and backwards depending on which way you're traveling across the international date line. And of course, cover up that hour hand so you don't have to see the second hour. Also important, white gold hands, white gold numerals. This is a very well loomed watch, and it is almost a sports watch in that regard. This is one of the reasons I call it Patek Philippe's most versatile timepiece. Dual time, automatic winding, fully loomed, and an alarm that can be set in a 24-hour sequence. Notice all three hands, primary hands, hours, minutes, and seconds, are loomed. 30 meters water resistant, which I describe as dress watch water resistance. Patek Philippe now calls that a literal 30 meters. I still don't recommend you test that theory. The movement is a bespoke piece for this caliber. It's big, 31 millimeters, and it has 574 pieces and 52 jewels. A 574 part movement is comparable to a Grande Sonnerie, so this is a very, very advanced watch. And of course, it's got a lot of advanced technology. We have a strike governor for the repeater that slows down the chimes to that 2.5 hertz, equivalent to a slow beating balance, but this has a fast beating balance at 28,800 vibrations per hour, 6-position adjusted, free sprung with a Spiromax silicone hairspring. It breathes concentrically in any position because of the profile of the spring, even though it's not an overcoil, and it's also highly anti-magnetic. The Gyromax-style free-sprung architecture makes precise adjustment in 6 positions easier and also makes it more shock-resistant. We have ceramic bearings at center that help to automatically wind a 52-hour power reserve. You've got the 2 time zones, the dual AM/PMs, the hacking seconds, the alarm system, the on-off function for the alarm, the striking mechanism, and as you can see, it is a beautifully decorated movement that has the barrel arbor and a golden chaton, like a pocket watch. We have circular Côte de Genève on the rotor, linear Côte de Genève on the bridges. Beautiful mirrored anglage, probably started mechanically, but ultimately finished with some sort of hand tool to give it that nice rounded mirrored shine. You'll also note that we have wonderful beveling within the jewel sinks, which is a great look, and satination on the wheels with the actual hammer for the strike being mirror finished and beveled on its side, that in stainless steel. All screw heads polished with chamfered slots and circumference, and you can see some of the locating pegs, like at the base of the balance cock, those two pegs that help to locate the balance cock on the base plate, those have been polished on their top, and there's engine turning on the base plate. So it's a really good looking movement. And it's called the AL30660 SCFUS, which is a alphabet soup, really an alphanumeric soup that describes all of the functions of this watch. And there is lots to love. Now, at the time the watch was made, Patek guaranteed no worse than -3 + 2 seconds per 24 hours, but subsequently has admitted that this and its other movements are able to run at no worse than -1 + 2. And of course, this watch is probably going to be regulated to that standard anytime it comes back from Patek service. So by the old standard or the new, you're dealing with something that is far better regulated than a chronometer, being 6 positions as a cased-up watch, not 5 positions as a bare movement. There is a lot to love in this watch. So much capability, but you've got to have an appetite for the price of it, as it will cost you darn close to a minute repeater, and it does require a little bit of discipline to master, but there is a lot on offer here, and this is a watch that is willing to give back what you put into it in terms of learning how to use it. It will quickly become your indispensable friend. Reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.